So today I'm joined by Suzanne Price from the Flowersmiths.
You are? Hello. Good
Hello.
afternoon.
Thank you for coming.
You're welcome. I mean, it's exciting to be here.
So tell me about your journey as to how you became a florist.
I started very young, actually, from school. I was good at art. And I thought I wanted to be an artist until we went to university to look around art courses, university, and I realised I really wasn't as outgoing and way out as some of them had in the 80s with pink hair and Mohicans, and I really going around in my little Laura Ashley dress going, no, this is really not going to be for me. But I've always used to love drawing and painting. I still do botanical painting, seeds and things and all sorts of things when we go on holiday. And so the two things just married together quite well, really. Rather than doing art, the floristry came up as another option, actually getting my hands on the flowers and doing art with flowers. So yes, that's how that came about. And I went up to North Wales and I did 3 years in North Wales, a sandwich course actually. I did my middle year in Jersey and Channel Islands.
Oh, did you?
I did. I was very lucky. I went to a wonderful florist there who taught me so much. And really a lot of what I do today is based from what I learnt over there.
Wow.
And then I finished a year after that up in North Wales and came back down here. Did a bit at Savoy Hotel, did a bit over in Belgium, did a little bit, just bits and pieces, and then I taught at Hadlow College for a few years.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I had my own shop. It's been long, but and then coming back into wedding flowers is the bit that I really liked, because again, I think it's because it was all the intricate things is what. The bits that I like about painting is all the very intricate bits and pieces there. I use a very big magnifying glass, and I find that the wedding floristry is very intricate and detailed. Some of the bits actually that a lot of people don't like, but I love all the corsages and buttonholes and the headdresses and all that sort of thing. So yes, that's how I came to be where I am now.
Brilliant. So how many years have you been doing weddings now?
I think probably since I've been on and off for a long time, but probably about since 2010, maybe a bit before that. So 15, 16 years back into it, just on the weddings now.
Right.
Yeah.
And do you just do weddings now, or do you do anything else too?
I sometimes would do a party or a funeral or something, but generally I like to buy the flowers in advance, so I'd like to know what I'm doing. I like to buy it in bulk. So I won't just do the odd bouquet here and there. I can't provide flowers on that basis. So it's events really is my thing.
And well, how far will you travel? Because you're based in Maidstone, is that right?
I am based in Maidstone. I do say on my website that I cover Kent, and I do cover Kent, but I do prefer to keep it local if possible.
Yeah.
Because of the travel with flowers in the back of a van, I mean, they're cool, but I don't really like the thought of being out on a limb too far when we've got work to do. So the more local, the better if I can stay.
And are there any venues in particular that you work at frequently?
Yes, I've got quite a lot actually now. I try not to have too big a list because that makes me too busy, but I've got obviously I've got Hever Castle, I've got Nettlestead Place, the Gardens, the Orangery in Maidstone. They've just taken another venue, Bilsinghurst.
Oh.
I think that's down by the coast. Oh, that's Ashford Way.
Okay.
Chilston Park. I've got a couple of places that are a bit smaller than that, and I've the moat at Ightham and the Glass House at Rootham, two smaller ones, but they're quite nice. So I've got a really good diverse.
Yeah.
Did I say Chilston Park? May
Yes.
have that as well. Really good diverse set of venues, so I can get to do some of the really big stagey work and then some of the really small bits and pieces as well, which works really nicely.
Yeah. And what do you enjoy doing the most out of all those? Because there is so much to it, isn't there? There is, you've got, as you say, you've got your buttonholes, you've got the bouquet.
My favourite part's of making a wedding bouquet.
Is
Always.
it?
Yeah. I think if you ask most florists, they will say that.
Right.
Yeah. It's the bit that's on show. It's a showpiece, isn't it? It's going to be on that camera all day. And there is a responsibility to that, but I love it because it's the most creative bit.
Yeah.
There you can get your textures in and you know that's going to be seen. Yeah, that's always my job. I've got a team of girls that come in. We do all sorts of things. We're all up and down ladders. We all join in and do a bit of everything, but that's always, pretty well always my job is the bouquet. Yeah, that's my little finishing touch at the end of it.
Yeah.
It's a bit that I like.
And I've seen a lot of your flowers at weddings, and I particularly love the beautiful arches that you do.
Yeah.
How long does it take you to make those? And can you do any of it off-site?
Yeah. A lot of it is done off-site. A lot of our work is done off-site. And a lot of the planning, obviously, is done off-site. It depends. An arch depends on where it's going to be, how big it's going to be, how many ladders we're going to have to carry, how many in the team, how we're going to make it. Sometimes things are made in moss. Sometimes we've got buckets of water. Sometimes we've got oasis. We've always got a frame, depends on what we're attaching it to. I would say on the day, making an arch can be a couple of hours for a couple of people, probably. Wow. That's what that would take. But then, of course, it's got to come the next day and take it all down again. Well, the bases are always made up the day before. And the finishing touches with the flowers are put on the day. Again, it does depend on the weather, of course. If it's very hot, we can't do very much until the last minute.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes, I think the weather's got to be in your favour, hasn't it? For the
fresh flowers is definitely weather dependent. Yes, there's ways around all sorts of things, but we are in this industry. We're quite pleased if it's not a really hot sunny day, which is not what other people want for their wedding day. We breathe a sigh of relief if there's a bit of cloud over the sky. Oh, good.
Well, actually, so do we, because obviously when we're filming weddings, if it's really, really bright,
yes,
A, it washes everybody out, and B, everyone's squinting. Yes. So just to have, a bit of cloud is great.
Of cloud cover. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's going to make everything last a lot longer.
So yes, we like cloud.
Yes.
So what is the general sort of booking process when clients, if they've decided they want to book you, how far in advance do they generally book you before their wedding, and then what's the process?
I like it if people come to us about 12 months to 18 months in advance. That's my preferred time. I think probably everyone's slightly different, but for me that works really well because it just gives us a time to chat, a time for them to change their minds on a few things, but not everything. So usually what people do is come to see me. I prefer it if they come to see me. Sometimes we can do online appointments. We do a lot of online appointments now after COVID, but for me, I prefer to see them.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I quite like to see my bride and groom. I like to see what they look like, how tall they are, because all of that has a bearing on what I'm going to make for them. But it doesn't matter. We can do Zoom or Teams appointments. But once they've been to see me, then I will be able to do an accurate estimate. People do ask for prices online or on emails, and it's really difficult to answer that. I'm sure everyone feels the same.
Yeah.
I want to be able to answer it, but I just don't know until I've spoken to them what really it is they want. So usually once we've had that meeting, and it's usually about an hour and a half, something like that, I'll go away and do a mood board of all the things that we've looked at, give them an idea of the flowers and the colours that we can put together, do the estimate, and if they want to book me, then I take a 20% deposit on that. And that's booked me in for not just that day, but for the day before and the day before that, because obviously that's when all the flowers come in and that's when we've got to start the work. So they're booking me for three days, really, because I've also got to collect it all the following day as well. So they're actually booking for quite a lot of my time.
Yeah.
And that puts them in the diary.
And even your inquiry process is pretty detailed, isn't it? If you've got to create
because every single thing is different. Every single item is different. In fact, I had with somebody the other day asking particularly like sweet peas and wanted it in big, she also wanted big high arrangements and pedestals, and of course they're only 50 centimetres in length. They're not going to look anything in big tall pedestals. So that's not, so everything that I use, all the materials that I use are very different for each individual piece. So you can't always use the same flower right across the board. I mean, sometimes you can with a rose, for example, but yes, it is very detailed. So even for me to put an estimate together, I always do a buying list alongside it, so I know exactly what I'm going to be putting into each arrangement, and that's how I can cost an estimate.
Right. And can you, obviously if a couple come along and they want absolutely amazing flowers and they've got a tight budget, and how do you manage that?
It's everyone.
Yeah, everyone.
Lots of people like that, aren't they? That can be managed. I think... and it depends what you mean by amazing, doesn't it, really? Define amazing, because it doesn't mean, I went to see the Mona Lisa last year. She's very, very small, actually, but she's still amazing. Yeah. So it doesn't mean that bigger is better. No. That really isn't the case. And I do like to think that if everybody had some fresh flowers, just even a small vase of something really beautiful on a table, people will take the trouble to look at it and appreciate it almost as much as an enormous great arrangement sitting up high. You're just creating different effects. And so long as you can sit down and talk to a couple and look through different ideas, you can get some really beautiful, amazing things. Or perhaps, if you really wanted to manage someone's budget, there are ways around it. We could do some big pieces, some small pieces, statement pieces, something a bit smaller on other tables.
Because it doesn't all have to be huge, does it? It's
no, it's better if it isn't.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah,
that's
agree.
Where I come from.
I agree.
I think it's better. It's more interesting if it's not all huge, great big pieces.
Yeah,
that's how I feel about it. I'd prefer to see each individual flower in something actually, but yeah, no, it doesn't all have to be big. No. I think most people don't. Some people don't want it all big.
No.
Some people want it small. Some people again, that's another nice thing about meeting the couples. Everybody's different, aren't they?
Yes.
Some people see some of those pictures of the big arrangements on tables and find the whole thing really rather overwhelming. And that's not what they want at all.
No. And what trends are you seeing coming in this year?
Colour, which I love. I really love it. That's the most exciting part, really, at the moment. There's lots of colour. I like all the whites and greens as well, and obviously that's traditional and it's beautiful. But colour is lovely. The really lovely, bold statement colours, sort of oranges and pinks and reds, and I like all of that. I like a bit of a mix. If people are brave enough, I like to do that. There's quite a lot of mixing some dried flowers in amongst the fresh flowers. There's lots of seed heads and things coming in. That's quite nice to do. Again, very textury.
Yeah.
But for me, that's really good because I'm an artist. I'm arty. I like something a bit different. Yeah. I like the textures being mixed together. So yeah, that's quite in at the moment. Wildflower meadows, they're quite in at the moment too.
Okay.
Probably have been for a while, but I like all that as well.
Yeah.
Whimsical.
So. Yes. Lovely. Lovely.
Yeah.
So what's the most enjoyable part of a job for you?
Oh, I could say meeting the couples. I really like that. I actually really like that because I really get feedback that way. I really enjoy bouncing off other people's ideas. They come to me with something and then we could really turn that into something really interesting, exciting. I love it when the flowers come in. When I get my delivery of flowers and they're all sitting there all beautiful in buckets and I can't wait to pick them up and do something with them. That's really exciting. And then the last bit probably is when we're sitting after having completed the whole thing and really put in hours and hours of work. I'm very tired, sitting there with a drink in the sunshine looking at what we've completed.
Yeah.
And saying to each other, we did that. Look what we just done. Look what we did.
Brilliant.
I love that. I love that, and I love if I'm lucky enough to be at a venue. Sometimes, for example, Hever Castle, where we're going, but some of the guests are starting to come in different entrance, and you can see people coming in and looking at what you've done, and the smiles on faces are lovely. Yeah, it's got to be the best bit, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
End, seeing the results of what you've done.
Yeah, and I think that's something we're very lucky being, in the wonderful world of weddings because we get to see all these fabulous reactions to our work, don't we?
It's a really happy job. That's what I really like.
Yeah.
It's positive. It's always positive.
Yeah.
It's never negative. It's always a positive outcome. Everything's I deal with making everything really pretty. How nice is that? I mean, how lucky am I really just to make things beautiful? What a lovely job. I always think that. And it's always a different job each time. So I've never got the same thing next week. It'll be a different set of colours. It'll be a different couple. It'll be a different venue. Be different designs, different flowers. The whole thing just, you work very long in the run up to it with all the bits and pieces of the ordering and toing and froing with the estimates and things like that. But once it's over, it's over. It's beautiful. Get the pictures and then you're on to the next one. Always changing.
Yeah.
I really like that.
So how much can you actually personalise a wedding floral theme?
Oh, quite a lot.
Yeah.
You get some funny ones. Yeah.
What's the weirdest one you had?
Oh, I don't know. I've had some really funny, very funny ones that make us laugh. All sorts of funny things. I've had somebody wanting all sorts of little no, I don't even. There were figurines put into arrangements once, and we were laughing as we opened all the bags up. And we had little men on surfboards, and also I've no idea why. I can't remember now for the life of me what they were. And in some ways, it was possibly a bit tacky, but actually it was really good fun, and for the couple, it meant something.
Yes. Yeah.
There were all sorts of funny little things. We had dinosaurs going in, all sorts of funny little scenes that we made. That was really memorable. I had to cover up here at Hever Castle, and I've got to do it again this year, the portrait of Henry VIII, because people didn't like looking at him on their wedding day, which makes me laugh. But I suppose they're quite right. He wasn't the best.
No.
Best husband, was he?
No, he wasn't. Maybe not who you want to share your wedding day with.
Yeah, so that is quite funny. So you can really personalise it. I mean, obviously then people bring you little trinkets and bits and pieces to put into bouquets. That's something that I do quite a bit.
Yeah.
People do ask for that. Little things on memory tables. That's rather nice to do. But, oh, yes, or a particular colour or a particular flower that somebody liked or used to grow in the garden. If somebody's got flowers in the garden that they want to use, if there's something specific, then I can do that, bring things in. Little jars and pots and jugs and things. People have bought me teapots to put things in. It can really be personalised, yeah.
And what's the most unusual object you've been asked to fill?
Oh, I can't think. I think just some of those bits I've just said, really. The antique things, the antique teapots and things, antique chamber pot. Yes, had to do a chamber pot. Maybe that's some of them. Never know. And you never know what they're going to turn up with when they say, we've got bits. Somebody made her own pots once and they were awful.
Oh, no.
They were really awful.
God.
We just sat there laughing at them. Okay, but that was her thing, so they were all right. No, I don't mind a bit of that, actually. I don't mind. I'm not precious like that.
A challenge.
Yeah, I'm not precious like it. No. I know some people would be, but I'm not really. I think I am all about the individual couple. That's what pleases me.
And what is the sort of standard, if you like, for a flower? If for the average wedding, what is the standard of what couples need as opposed to what they might want?
Oh gosh, yes. Well, so usually things change, don't they? Over the years, I've been doing this so long that does change a bit, and every wedding is different. So generally, I would say most people will want bouquets and buttonholes. Although I've got a couple of weddings this year who don't want buttonholes for the men.
Okay,
that's just something they don't want to do. I would say generally table centres, but sometimes people don't even want those. But generally that's a norm. I think it is lovely to have fresh flowers on the centre of a table when you're eating.
Yeah.
I think that's a really lovely thing to do. And then usually something on the registrar's table, if that's indeed, they're getting married there, of course. Very often that can be replaced onto a top table. I did used to say, oh, well, you don't need anything on there. But somebody corrected me once, a long time ago, and said, well, I think that's a really important place, our registrar's table, because that's where our wedding photo is. That's the key place that's important in our wedding.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's where it's all taking place when we're signing a register, which was quite right. So, and I think of that now, and I always think of that and think, actually, that's a good point. That's a very important place there, signed in that register.
It's where the legalities happen, isn't it? So,
it's in all the
it's
photographs.
hugely important.
Yeah. And then quite often people will put the nice extras are decorating the gazebo or the wedding ceremony area or the arch or whatever it is there. That's a nice extra. And then down the aisle, that's become quite popular.
Yes, I've seen that a lot in the last few years.
It gets a little bit more expensive when you start doing that. But again, those things can be repurposed if you want to.
Yeah. And obviously you've got to be careful of the width of the dress, haven't you? I have seen one go slightly wrong.
Have you?
Yeah.
Have you? Yeah, it's my thing is when people say they want candles on the floor, I go, no.
Yeah.
You probably don't.
Definitely not.
You don't really.
Especially candles in the water.
Oh, yes.
vases.
No, you don't want any of those.
Absolutely don't have those.
No. If you're going to do it, then LED candles really down an aisle.
Yeah.
It's surprising what people don't think of.
No.
Actually, you see the pictures on Pinterest, go, that's what I want.
Yeah.
And then, yes, that's possibly been taken as a photograph for an...
Yeah.
I don't know, as a picture, not necessarily as a practical thing.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I've seen that go.
Have you?
Yeah, quite horribly wrong. And, a granny tripped over the candle in quite a tall, it was quite, sort of about knee high. But older people don't necessarily...
No, No,
look.
and you can't.
Because you don't expect to see something on the floor, do you?
You can't often see down on the floor very well. No, I tend not to do those sorts of bits. If I'm honest, it tends to be the flowery bits that can go down the aisle. Yeah, but they look lovely if they're repurposed inside.
Yes, absolutely.
They can look really very pretty.
So then once the ceremony's taken place, you then move the flowers into the reception room? Or do the venue do that?
Quite often the venue will do that. Not always. Again, this year I've got a couple of people who want me to do it, so I'll stay on for a couple of hours with the girls and the team, and we'll move things once the ceremony is over. Generally we can do that, but sometimes the venue, it depends on the venue. Yeah, it really depends on the venue. Everyone's very different as to what they will accept and what they won't accept, what they'll do. Most venues are really good and will move things. And generally, I wouldn't expect people to start moving things that are really heavy.
No.
Not really very good in your wedding outfit, is it?
No. What advice would you give to couples when they start looking for a florist?
I would definitely look at their portfolio of work, what they've done before, the experience that they've had. There are florists that, as I've noticed, that perhaps haven't got so much experience and perhaps have done a couple of courses on YouTube, and I really that isn't necessarily the best thing to go for. Definitely look at portfolio, definitely look at experience, look at the reviews that they have. Really look at the reviews. It's really important. Go and see people. I would even say go and see 2 or 3 florists, see which ones you like. I wouldn't necessarily say go with the cheapest. Isn't that the same with everything?
Yeah.
Isn't it? I don't know. Cheapest doesn't mean better. You generally are not comparing apples and apples when you come to a florist.
Yeah.
They will be charging slightly different prices. They'll have different overheads. Some will have a shop, some won't. Some will have staff, some won't. Their overheads will all be different. They may want to put loads of flowers in, and somebody else may not want to put quite so many flowers in. So you're going to get a different look from each florist. So you need to go and see the look that you like, and someone that you feel you can work with. Also, maybe somebody that's going to do the job that you want them to do, not the job that they want to do.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely, because it is their wedding, isn't it, at the end of the day, and their choice.
Yes, I've heard this about photographers. Sometimes people come to tell me that they've seen a photographer that has told them what they will do, rather than the other way round.
Yeah,
I'm not like that either.
No.
I like to work with that couple.
Yeah,
it's their wedding day.
And these weddings, they're all so different, which is what makes them so wonderful.
Yeah.
It'd be so boring if they're all the same.
Wouldn't it? I like the fact that they're all different. Yeah. I definitely, and that's why you should go with a florist that's got a extensive portfolio. Yeah. That has done a lot of work in a lot of different places, because they will know how to do things and deal with things when if they do go wrong, which they sometimes do. You need somebody that can deal with all of the potential outcomes.
Yeah. And presumably you would work with, if they choose a cake that has fresh flowers on, presumably you would work alongside the cake maker.
And that's the thing. I very often get couples that say, "Oh yeah, we just want a few flowers on a cake." Okay, can we? You just, once you've seen your cake made, can let me know what it is you want, and I might get a photograph back with a cascade of flowers all the way down the front, and I go, "Oh yeah, just something like that." Just something like that. Okay. Because actually that's really quite tricky. Yeah. That's a really tricky one to do.
How long would it take to make
it? It can take quite a long time, because some of those pieces are all wired together. They're not stuck into a cake. It's not Oasis. You can't just stick flowers into a cake. No. I mean, a cake maker will tell you that. And obviously there's health and safety reasons why you can't do that. And also, if you did do that, you'd end up big holes in all this cake and it falling apart. And this beautiful cake that's been made and taken hours and hours to do. So no, that cascade that goes all the way down is all hand wired, every single bloom, and taped, and that is not an easy, straightforward job. And it's surprising how many blooms it takes. It's not just a handful of bits and pieces that you've got left over at the end, which I think people do sometimes go, "Oh, just a few flowers if you've got them left over." It's never quite as straightforward as that. But yes, you need to work with the cake people. And of course, these days there's lots of health and safety issues with flowers on cakes and toxic flowers and all sorts of things. So you need to be aware of all of that as well.
Oh, gosh.
So that's not straightforward. It used to be, years and years ago, it used to be very straightforward. Now it isn't.
No. There's so much that I mean, even though obviously I know weddings inside out, but that, there's so much you don't think of, isn't there?
Yeah, and with a cake, I always have to have the name of the maker if there is a cake maker. If it's Marks and Spencer's, it's not the same, but because we have to get there at the same time. Obviously, we have to coordinate timings. And then if it's a very hot day in a marquee, the cake person's not necessarily going to want to be there at 10 in the morning.
No.
If that cake's not going to be cut until 4 in the afternoon, that cake will not want to be in a marquee all of that time. So you've got to be flexible and be able to get in and out and be there for the cake maker, because at that point they're the most important person, because that has potential for disaster, doesn't it?
Yes,
otherwise?
yes, absolutely.
So yeah, you have to be able to work with lots of different people in the industry as well, I think.
And talking of disaster, what's the worst thing that's ever happened to you?
That's very kind of you to ask. Thank you. I think the worst things that happen are pretty well nearly always to do with the weather. Really, I had a vase that I put on a table once, filled up with water, and put the flower arrangement on the top, and the vase burst.
No!
Just burst all over the table. Before the wedding, so it was fine.
Oh, gosh.
And I always carry a vase spare. So that was fine. But yeah, that was a bit of a wet mess.
Yes, I bet.
Because there was a fault in the vase, I suppose, like there can be in glass. So yeah, that wasn't great. But it wasn't during the wedding, fortunately.
No, and that was salvageable, so that was fine.
Yeah, now I'm thinking of other things. I remember also a martini glass that went over, and that also, just as we were walking away, there was a crack, and the stem, it wasn't the stem, it was a bit of the foot that came away, and that went crack, and we caught it. And then we didn't have a spare martini glass. We'd only got the amount of martini glass we had years and years and years ago now. We had sellotape.
So they just had
sellotape. We had lots of sellotape. Sellotaped it all on. And then suddenly every table had lots of petals around the bottom of the vases to cover the one that actually had the sellotape on. And I didn't sleep that night, and I came back the next day to collect the vases, and the vase was absolutely fine. But yeah. The other thing would be the weather. I find things being blown off the tops of things. Very little notice. You go and do a site visit one day and it's absolutely beautiful. The next, come the wedding day, it's absolutely howling gale, and you're suddenly thinking, yeah, this is not all going to stay in one place now. Those are the things you can't really plan. But you have spare flowers. You have a big toolbox. I always think if you've got a toolbox with everything in it, you should be able to sort out most things.
Yeah.
So long as you leave the couple with a lovely arrangement somehow, and it should be fine. Yeah.
And what are the most common mistakes that some couples can make when choosing their flowers?
I think some of the things nowadays, people coming to me with big pictures from Pinterest. I love Pinterest, actually. I use it all the time, every day. But I do find people tend to rely on it a bit, and they'll come to me with pictures that are of enormous flower arrangements and events. And so that's what I want my flowers to look like. And I have to then backtrack and go, let's just see what your budget is, shall we? Because you might not really want that wedding at all, actually, when you know how much that's all going to cost. I think people's reliance perhaps on Pinterest now is a bit of a mistake. And I also think the photographs, some photographers will take pictures of things and then maybe edit them in a certain way so the colours are slightly different. Yeah. So I get things given to me, say, that's what we want that to look like. But it won't. I don't know how to say it nicely.
Yeah,
it's not
because they've graded the pictures, haven't they?
They've edited it over, and the colours get washed out in quite a lot of the photos, which I can see, but it's quite difficult to then try and put that across to a couple. I hate to say to them, you can't have that. So I try to find nice ways of saying, well, actually, this is what it looked like. So I do find that, and perhaps when a photographer's taking close-up pictures of something looks amazing, I know that actually when we pull back from that arrangement on that table is going to look really flat in the venue perhaps that they've chosen. Do you know, most couples are brilliant. Most couples come with a really open mind, so I don't really have too much of a problem. Booking too early,
okay,
that's a problem because they change their mind so many times between now and the wedding. And also I can't accurately predict prices so far in advance because I'm working with a product that's coming through market all the time.
So I guess you just have to give them an estimate, really, do you?
It's always an estimate.
Yeah.
It's always an estimate. I try and stick 100% to it because I always feel that it's my job to make that estimate as accurate as I possibly can.
Yeah.
I can't really think of a time where I've had to change that. Bit over COVID where people had to move, and of course then that gap of 2 or 3 years made a difference with some prices. But generally I try to keep that as accurate as I can. And the other thing people do sometimes, and it's not very often, is not leave me enough time. It's to come to me a couple of months before,
Right,
and then expect me to try and get everything done that needs to be done in actually what is for me quite a small space of time if I'm working on other weddings. But that's not that often. I get that. Most people are very aware once they start booking a venue that suddenly they're going to have to get on with this.
Yeah.
Because people get booked up, don't they?
yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
And what's one of the funniest things that ever happened at a wedding?
I have lots of fun at our weddings. We have lots of fun. I did a wedding where it was at a private house and they had a very long drive. So you couldn't see the top and you couldn't see the bottom. And in the middle, there were some electric gates. I had a team of ladies. We had a couple in a marquee, had a couple on a staircase or doing an arch or something, and a couple on the electric gates because they wanted these arrangements to be put on these gates. But unbeknownst to them, they'd get up at the top of the gate to put the arrangement on, and somebody at the other end, a car would come, set the sensor off, the gate would start moving and everything, and they were stuck on the gate. Every time, or they'd run down the ladder, put the ladder away, let the car go through, and of course it would be somebody like a delivery for flowers or whatever it might be for the wedding, a present or gift or something. So the car would go down, the gate was closed again, they'd get back up the ladder and start putting the flowers on, and the car would turn around at the bottom, come back up again, set the next sensor off, and it would go again. It took about 2 hours to put a spray of flowers on the gates, which made me laugh. And then last year we had a wedding at a venue where our access to it was through a field. It was a marquee, but it was through a field. And in the field there were cows. And as we came to the gate, there's cows in that field, but they're right down there, we should be fine.
What, with the marquee in with the cows?
Well, no, the marquee was in the field next to the cow field. But we had to drive through the cow field to get to the bottom of the marquee. So we get through, so you could see the object. We're going to have to get through the gate. My colleague will have to get out of the van, open the gate, close the gate behind us, and get back in the van. But in the time it took us to get through the gate, she closes the gate behind her. The cows are stampeding towards us at a rate of knots. And she really literally just jumped into the side of the van, shut the van door before we were surrounded by cows. And then we had to drive all the way down the field with the cows next to us all the way down to the marquee. Oh, and then we did laugh. There was 3 of us in the front of the van. Oh, we really did laugh at how on earth we're going to get out of this. And every time we wanted to go to the marquee, the same thing happened. It was funny.
So how did you get out then?
Well, in the end, we had to figure out where the cows were, drive really fast down this very bumpy field, all of us bumping around all over the front of the van, really fast, faster than the cows could run. She'd jump out the van, open the gate, we'd drive through it and close the gate behind us. Oh, it was amusing.
Brilliant. Excellent. And are there any ways you can make your flowers more sustainable these days?
Yes, obviously there's local flower growers. People ask that now, which is really nice. I'm really glad that they do. So I've got some local flower growers that I sometimes use. They can't grow everything, and they don't they don't provide sometimes the flowers that we actually perhaps need. So some of the staple flowers like roses can be quite difficult to find locally.
Yeah.
So they have to be imported. But I do quite like making arrangements where the flowers just go directly into water, not into oasis, because that's not a good thing to be using these days. Moss, a lot of things are moss based now.
Right.
And when I started this back in 1980 something, everything was mossed, and we had oasis was coming in. But I had to do everything. All my exams were on moss. Yeah, moss basis. It's all come around full circle.
Wow.
Yeah. So luckily, though, I know how it works.
Yeah.
So it's just a full circle thing.
And moss looks so much better, doesn't it, I think?
It really does. I suspect one day that will also be unsustainable because there's only so much moss you can grow in the world, I suppose. But For now, yeah, so it's a mixture of all things, really. Things like the arches we were talking about earlier. I have tubes that I put in, fill those with water. So that's not always on a moss base. There's water tubes that go underneath there.
Okay.
The mechanics of that are quite complicated, but then the flowers are all sitting in fresh water.
Right.
So that's quite a nice one to do.
Gosh, that is more complicated than I thought. I just assumed they were just stuck in.
No, I think we went through a very lazy phase where people were putting everything in Oasis, but now, no, that's something that people try not to do. You can get a biodegradable one, but it's not great. It's still not perfect, really, not yet.
Because if you do use it, you need quite a lot of it, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah, but there are lots of ways around doing things. Big buckets of water. It's heavy. That's the only trouble.
Yeah.
And not quite so easy to transport. That would be my only thing, I would say. It's quite difficult to transport things in big buckets of water slopping around in the back of a van.
Yeah, so you've got a purpose-built van, haven't you, for that job?
I have, yeah. Yeah, lots of watering cans. Yes, yeah. But no, it's a good way to be, to try to be more sustainable, definitely. Yeah.
And if you weren't a florist, what would your dream job be?
Oh, right. I don't know. There's lots of things I'd like to be. I'm just very creative and very arty. I think one of the things I love at the moment, I don't know, what would I like to be? I'd like to be a stained glass maker is what I'd probably like to do.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
It's one of my hobbies, and I'd really, that would fill my days beautifully. I would really enjoy that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be a lovely job.
Stained glass art.
Oh.
Garden art, perhaps, that sort of thing. I like my garden.
Oh, well, it's been really interesting chatting to you today. Thank you very much for coming in to join me.
It's been really, really nice to talk all about me and what I do. It's a privilege, isn't it? You don't get a chance very often.
No.
Thank you very much for having me.